Thank you, Brandy. I really appreciate having this opportunity to speak and connect with young professionals. As Brandy said, I agree. This is a really important venue, and I appreciate having the opportunity. So kind of give you a little information because the type of work I do, not everyone may be familiar with, as compared to federal science work or academia. So the Water Institute of the Gulf is a not-for-profit independent research organization. So although we're not-for-profit, we're not an advocacy organization. We're not trying to save anything. We're not a charity in that sense. That just means that our primary mission is to support decision-making related to community resilience and to ecosystem conservation and restoration by providing targeted applied science. And we particularly emphasize integrated and interdisciplinary approaches. So what do I do there? As Brandy said, I'm a research oceanographer. I specialize in hydrodynamics, morphodynamics, and sediment transport. So I do a lot of numerical modeling, a lot of field data analysis, decision support tools. And so right now I work out of St. Petersburg, Florida, full-time, although I'm affiliated with the Water Institute's New Orleans office. Prior to coming here, I had spent my career working as a federal scientist with the USGS and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, again, doing very similar things. So applied science really targeted toward answering specific research questions that folks need to make better decisions, either to make more resilient communities or to make better decisions as far as protecting ecosystems. How did I get here? Extremely non-linearly in a lot of different ways. This is that little red line is showing moves that I've made professionally for either education or work. And this is sort of the first lesson learned. A lot of people I think figure out very early on that they have a specific research focus that they're interested in, which is really valuable. Other folks, myself included, have a relatively diverse background. And one of the things that I've found in my career is that, the way you market yourself and connect maybe differs a little bit depending on which sort of that category you fall in. So for myself, I've found that having a diverse background has given me some skill sets that other folks may not have, but I have to sometimes explain to people where I can bring that skill set into play, because I may not look like, my resume may not look like someone who's focused in very specifically on for example, the topic that a job is related to. So my education background, again, you'll start to see that nonlinearity early. My bachelor's is in physics and math. I actually did my undergraduate thesis was on a theoretical math proof. I did a master's in oceanography. I worked on remote sensing of beaches, extracting features of the near shore and looking at how those changed in time. And then I did a master's and PhD in mechanical engineering with a specialty in fluid dynamics at the University of Florida, where I was studying laser diagnostics of aerosol particles. So again, you can see I'm not cleanly an engineer or a scientist, and I've done a lot of different research topics. And what I've found is that there's two sides of that coin. It can either look like this sort of jack of all trades, master of none, and the key is to recognize that in fact, what that enables is having experience with a variety of different problems and different disciplines that have different approaches that can be leveraged, brought to bear on new problems. And so that, again, is a lesson that I've learned to really, really focus on that when thinking about new positions or moving up in my current position. Work experience is equally diverse. I had a couple of different stints actually with the U.S. Geological Survey at the Woods Hole Coastal and Marine Science Center, a postdoc, as well as a research assistant position. In those cases, both of those cases, I was looking at sediment mobility on the continental shelf. When I was with the Army Corps of Engineers, I was actually looking at water quality and specifically looking at modeling the impact of menhaden, which are a fish, on water quality. And then I was with the U.S. Geological Survey St. Pete Coastal Marine Science Center. I was looking at beach systems. So again, you might kind of question how all of these things hang together, but there's a lot of the same skill sets involved in numerical modeling and understanding fluids. And the diversity there really kind of leads to things where you can bring to bear skill sets that are maybe non-traditional. And that, again, that's sort of the take home in some ways of my career. For example, some of the work that I've done that's really been recognized highly was kind of that just taking that approach. I've received an award from Army Corps of Engineers for menhaden and fish modeling. I'm not a biologist. I know nothing about fish, but it was applying a conservation of mass, conservation of energy engineering approach to a fish. I got the PECASE award. It was for looking at the movement of sand and oil following Deepwater Horizon, and it was leveraging a modeling approach that I originally developed for sediment on the continental shelf. So again, being creative about opportunities and thinking about what you can bring to the table rather than kind of deciding a priori what somebody might be looking for, I think is a real asset. In putting together this presentation, it's sort of an odd thing to speak about, thinking about how you got where you are. I think some of the key enablers in being successful in some of those positions, advocacy and support are really vital to advancement. Supervisors and advisors, particularly as you're getting into that bridge between, young professional and mid-career, people make assumptions right or wrong as far as, people's contribution to team efforts. And, you want to work with senior people that make sure to highlight, folks' contributions. Work culture is really important, meritocracy. I think one of the questions that was asked, is how do you know when to move on? Really depending on the position you're in, academia or government or private, the metrics of success will be different. But, wherever you are, the most success I've had is in places where it's really clear what those metrics of success are, what the expectations are, and that, meeting those or exceeding those results in people being able to move up. The other thing, peer network, and this is a great venue for this. Peer network is really important. I remember being in school and seeing these, titans of the field, legends in the various fields, and thinking, wow, amazing to work for them, and kind of internalizing and realizing that myself and my peers, those are the next great titans, and it's important to connect to people that are both within your discipline and, at the peripheral, because again, there's a lot of really great interdisciplinary work. That's a big emphasis right now, I think, and it's got a lot of great opportunities. So continuing to build that network and to maintain those connections, both with senior people as advisors that are good supporters, as well as with peers is really important. When I look back at those kind of moving around careers, and I think about where the places were that really boosted my career, it's usually associated with a person that was always in my court. Kind of the flip side of that, lessons learned, again, trying to think about, it's a little weird to self-assess one's own career, but, as far as time to look for a new position, I have moved around a lot. In most cases, I was going to some place, not necessarily leaving from some place. I was in a contract position, moving to a new one, or wanted to, move to a different location, in terms of geography. I think it's always good to be open to options. That was something that I was not at every point in my career. I think being willing to look at the field and see what, everything that's out there at all times is good. But I think it's really time, to start actively looking for a new position when, those things I mentioned, if you don't feel like you have an advisor that's really in your court, or if you're struggling to identify what what the metrics are to move up where you are, that's really time to look. When looking for a new position, either internally or asking for a raise or moving up, again, I think the trick there is that I know personally I will sometimes fall into a trap of, I'm not what they're looking for. And, well, of course I'm not. If I can't convince myself, then I'm not going to convince anybody else. So, starting from the assumption that, that you have something to bring to the table and really kind of articulating with specificity to yourself what those things are, and then having that conversation, I think, is the big thing. Advocating for work-life balance. For me, the first barrier, certainly not the only barrier, but the first barrier was internal. I had put a lot of expectations of either what I expected of myself, as far as how many hours to put in or what to do, or what I was projecting onto someone else as far as their expectations. So for me, the first hurdle was kind of recognizing that. It's still a real challenge for me. But deciding what I want it to look like. Again, thinking through specifically what adjustments I want to make. It's easiest when you're starting a new position because you can kind of negotiate it. But even within a given position, decide where you really want to be, and then have a very, what I found works is a very, objective kind of conversation where you're willing to kind of give and take, and really highlight where choices may benefit or at least be neutral to an employer as far as like flexible time or flexible work location, etc. And then kind of the last thing I'll say, and it sounds kind of squishy, but it's important, is enjoy what you do. I think personally, one of the things that I found in work is that I tend to second guess myself if I'm unhappy with something. I'm too sensitive, or well, it's not so bad, or every job has good pros and cons, or whatnot. And I think that's true. Sometimes sometimes it may be that you're being sensitive to something, but I've found that a lot of times having that feeling of something being not quite right, not being enthusiastic about going to work in the morning, maybe that's a trigger to kind of look objectively again at do I, objectively, do I have these opportunities for success? Do I have this support? And if you don't, then I think that's the trigger, again, where, you start looking at to see, what other opportunities are out there, either within an organization or beyond it. So that's all I had. I know the questions are going to come at the end, so I look forward to that discussion. Thank you.